Merfolk have fascinated humans for a long time. We've grown up hearing adventure stories and love stories about them our whole lives. But have you ever stopped to ask, why would a fish evolve to look human? How does an intelligent civilization develop underwater, without fire, without paper, without metal? Hi, my name is Sophia and I'm a biologist. Mermaids and tritons are some of the most iconic creatures in fantasy. But today, we're going to find out if their ecology actually makes any sense, and build a version that does. Part 1. Ecology and Life Strategy. The first thing we need to ask is, where do merfolk actually live? Because the ocean is not one environment, it's many. And where a merfolk population lives would completely change what they look like, what they eat, and how they behave. Usually, merfolk are described as living in shallow waters, but they can reach big depths. This could create different merfolk species or races, since they could live in different habitats. Coastal merfolk would have the most contact with humans, which explains most of the folklore. They would be the usually mermaids we are used to seeing. Coral reef merfolk would live in one of the most biodiverse environments on the planet, rich in food, color, and light. They would probably be more colorful themselves, blending into the reef, and their diet would include fish, crustaceans, and mollusks. And deep-sea merfolk? Well, this is where things get strange. In the deep ocean, red light doesn't exist. It's absorbed before it reaches those depths, which means many deep-sea species have evolved to be red or dark-colored, because at that depth, red is effectively invisible. A deep-sea merfolk population might look completely alien compared to anything we've imagined. Maybe they would evolve dark vision or have eyes that can sense light and dark. They would probably feed on carcasses that fall from the top of the ocean and reproduce maybe once in their lifetime. Merfolk are intelligent and social, but they are not at the top of the food chain. Giant squid, large sharks, orcas would all be real threats. And that threat would shape their behavior, pushing them toward group living and coordinated defense. And then there's reproduction. Merfolk would probably be oviparous or even ovoviviparous, similar to fish, not mammals. It also means the females would have no biological reason to have breasts, since they wouldn't be nursing young the way mammals do. The classic mermaid design makes very little biological sense. Part 2. Respiration and Physiology. Now, how do merfolk breathe? In Dungeons and Dragons, it is said that merfolk can breathe both in water and out of water, just like many folklore tales. This means they have both lungs and gills. This isn't as strange as it sounds. There are fish today that can breathe air, and amphibians that can breathe both underwater and on land. A merfolk species with a dual respiratory system would be perfectly viable. And here's something interesting from folklore. In many traditions, merfolk can share their breath with others underwater, allowing humans to survive beneath the surface. Biologically, this is fascinating. The easiest explanation would be magic, but maybe they have mucous membranes that allow for this oxygen transfer. Their skin would be nothing like human skin. Think of dolphins, thick, smooth, and resistant. Human skin is terrible underwater. It waterlogs, tears, and gets cold. A biologically accurate merfolk would have skin built for the ocean, not for land. And hair. Several representations show merfolk with long, flowing hair, but long hair underwater creates drag and gets tangled. If merfolk have hair at all, it will serve a purpose, possibly sensory, like the lateral line system in fish, which detects vibrations and movement in the water around them, or maybe sexual selection, like the peacock tail. Ears are another thing that's often overlooked. Human ears are designed to work in air. Underwater, they become little more than drag-producing flaps attached to the side of your head. Merfolk would possibly have no external ears, like seals. Their nose would also be simple, like cetaceans or sharks. And regarding their torso, I think that is the most important question. The classic merfolk design has a problem. Where are all the important organs? Kidneys, reproductive system, propulsion muscles, where are they located? The easiest way would be for the human part to end earlier, but that raises a new question. If we take all of these humanoid parts from the merfolk design, are merfolk even recognizable as part humanoid, part fish? Part 3. Social structure and behavior. This is a section I find most fascinating, because building an intelligent civilization underwater without fire, without paper, without metal, that's a genuinely interesting problem. Let's start with communication. Sound travels much faster and much further underwater than in air. Whales can communicate across entire ocean basins. If merfolk evolved in these environments, their language would probably be more like whale songs than speech. Complex, layered, and able to travel enormous distances. Just like whale songs, but structured enough to carry history, law, and culture. And how do you record that culture without paper? Merfolk would carve their history into stone or coral or weave them into fabric, materials that do not corrode underwater. Technology would also look very different. Fire doesn't work underwater, which means no metal working, with two exceptions. Copper and gold don't oxidize underwater, so merfolk metallurgy would be extremely limited and precious. Most tools would be made from shell, coral, or bone. Regarding food, merfolk cultivate and keep livestock. Underwater agriculture is absolutely viable, cultivating kelp forests and shellfish. Borders are another fascinating question. On land, rivers, mountains, and walls define territory. Underwater, there are no natural barriers of the same kind. Merfolk borders would probably be defined by resource zones, fishing grounds, thermal vents, coral systems, which would make them inherently contested and fluid. This mirrors real problems we have today in international maritime borders, which are some of the most disputed boundaries in the world. Part 4. Building a biologically accurate merfolk. So what would a biologically accurate merfolk actually look like? The honest answer is, it depends on where they live. A coral reef merfolk and a deep sea merfolk would look so different that you might not immediately recognize them as the same species. But let's start with what they would probably share. The human body is not hydrodynamic. Shoulders create drag, hips create drag, and the transition between a human torso and a fishtail, the way we usually draw it, leaves almost no room for the organs that actually keep a body alive. The honest answer is that the human part would have to end much earlier than what we imagine. Think less mermaid, more dolphin with arms. A merfolk body would be leaner, smoother, and more elongated than what we usually imagine. And speaking of arms, why would merfolk even have them? The answer is tool use. Hands are one of the most useful things an intelligent species can evolve, and merfolk would need them to build, craft, and manipulate their environment. But underwater, arms create drag. So merfolk would probably hold them close to the body while swimming, extending them only when needed, similar to how penguins use their wings. Their skin would be thick, smooth, and resistant. No external ears, just simple openings. Their nose would be minimal, possibly with nostrils that still shut while diving. Hair, if present at all, would not be long and flowing. It would either be absent, very short, or serve a specific purpose. Eyes would depend entirely on habitat. Shallow water merfolk might have eyes more similar to ours, adapted for bright, clear water. Deep sea merfolk could have enormous eyes built to detect the faintest traces of light. Or, like some deep sea squid, eyes positioned to maximize different angles of vision simultaneously. And then there's the question of why they look human at all. There are three possibilities. The first is convergent evolution, the same selective pressures producing similar solutions in different lineages. Forward-facing eyes, manipulative hands, and upright posture are all extremely useful for an intelligent tool-using species. The second is shared ancestry or interbreeding with humans or elves in the distant past, which would explain the facial similarities in D&D. The third is simply magic. And honestly, in a fantasy world, all three can be true at once. But here's the thing. If we apply all of this biology consistently, the merfolk that comes out of the other end looks very different from what we were used to. Leaner, smoother, with a torso that ends earlier than expected, minimal features, and a face that is recognizably humanoid, but streamlined in ways that make it feel slightly uncanny. And I think that's more interesting, because it's a creature that could only exist in the ocean, not a human who happens to have a tail. Merfolk are not just humans with fish tails. They are a species shaped by one of the most extreme and diverse environments on the planet, and that environment will touch everything about them, from how they breathe to how they remember their history. So how does this change the way you use them in your world? Maybe your merfolk don't have the classic design at all. Maybe their song is their written language. Maybe their borders are the most contested lines in your world, because no one can agree where the coral ends and the open water begins. Maybe the deep sea merfolk and the reef merfolk are so different they barely recognize each other as the same species. The ocean is already one of the strangest places on Earth. Your merfolk should be just as strange. If you want to go deeper into building species that actually make sense, check out my previous videos on fairies, dryads, and evil species. And if there's a creature you want me to cover next, let me know in the comments. Now, go create!